Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Isaac Opoku-Asare, and this is Healthy Heart. And I believe that we are all grateful to God for being alive. And once again, we want to salute our heroes, the doctors, the nurses, and all the allied health workers who are at the front line of what is going on. We seek that in addition to all that we do, we also seek God's protection, even as we go about taking care of our patients. Apart from the healthcare workers, we are all doing our part one way or the other to help keep people alive. You know, somebody said something recently, and it says it was in a discussion about what is going on, and the person said he is not too much worried about the COVID in terms of getting it. And I said, it's okay. You may not be worried. And it's because probably when you get it, you may not have a problem. But the challenge that we may have going forward is that you may go home and infect your family members and other people, and that will not be appropriate. So you even if you don't care about yourself, I believe that there is nobody in this world that hasn't got a loved one. So for the sake of your loved ones, it is important and imperative that we all do the best we can in terms of adhering to the national guidelines in terms of protection, in terms of social distancing, and the things that we need to do to be able to ensure that together we are all doing the right things to keep us safe, and with God's help, things are going to be better. The rate of doubling of infections has clearly come down, and that is very good news. The other things that we've also seen is the fact that now we are even we have also seen the hospitalization for COVID-19, at least in the hot areas around the country, is also coming down. So all these things are, I think, very, very good things for us to be hopeful and not to fear. Our goal, as much as possible, is the fact that let us do all the things that we think is appropriate, and we believe. I strongly believe that we as a nation and we as people, we're going to come out of this much, much better. Today we're talking about COVID-19 and calorie management. Why is that important? We know that there are national guidelines established by the president and the current administration, phase 1, phase 2, for states to be able to open. We all know that. So there are various forms of opening around the country, but majority of the country is still under quarantine, and then so it affects your calorie management. It's very, very important. So why is that important? Because number one, the principle of one size fit all does not work in terms of calorie management. I don't tell patients eat this, eat this amount. The first thing that I tell the patients is tell me how you are doing, and in that way is going to help us to be able to move on. We've talked about the various things, the various conditions that affect patients. A few things that came up once again is the fact that if you are on lisinopril or all those medications, that we continue to get data, but there is no indication now for you to stop your lisinopril and enalapril, all those antihypertensive medications that is also good for heart failure. You are supposed to continue these things. That is critical and very important for you. So that is one thing for us in cardiovascular medicine. The other thing that is also important that I wanted to talk about, I want to give sort of updates about COVID-19 and the cardiovascular disease, and then we'll go on to other things. So if you have cardiovascular disease, I don't need to sort of belabor you with that point. The probability of having a more severe outcomes in terms of being in the hospital, in terms of being intubated and other things, much higher. And that is why it is important that as much as possible, people with those conditions, you limit your exposure to the best of your ability. And now that's why I like the guidelines that says that the vulnerable, they are the third stage of the opening of the economy because of the risk. But remember this, virtually everybody is at risk, but these people with cardiovascular condition, which occurs predominantly in the elderly population, needs to be careful. So let us talk about another thing that has come up recently, which is important. It's about when you need a procedure. So for instance, you went to your doctor did a test on you, and you need a cardiovascular procedure. The issue here is the fact that it is a little bit challenging now for us to be able to do some of these procedures. A lot of procedures are being held off now, and the reason why they are being held off now is because currently the hospital is a place where these COVID-19 patients who are sick come to. So doctors have to do a balance in terms of the risk-benefit ratio, in terms of allowing you to come into the system, and that will create more infection for you. So especially for people that are more than 65 years, you may be hearing from your doctor that we want to wait till this particular condition goes away. In certain states, it is on the lower side, so those states are opening up. But in other places where the COVID-19 is high, certain hospitals and certain doctors are holding off that in terms of heart procedures, knee surgeries, in terms of other surgeries. In those areas, that is what is being done. And it is being done because of the fact that getting into the hospital may increase your risk of having coming. It's not because of the procedure per se, but coming into an area where there's a high concentration of COVID patients may increase the risk, and that is why these things are being done. I read an interesting publication in New England Journal about a patient who met his doctor just before the COVID and needed a procedure during this time, and they had to have a lot of discussion back and forth. The family wanted it, the family were pushing for it, and these are the kind of challenges, the discussion that they were having back and forth about the risk-benefit ratio. So the point is that there is good news on things seem to be heading in the right direction. So hopefully the system will open up quickly, and then all those who need procedures to be done on them, whether it is knee surgery, heart surgery, anything that can be done, that will be done. The goal is to be able to sort of do it in an environment when the COVID-19 has come down. So these are some of the discussions that are going on, and it's important for me as an interventional cardiologist and also an endovascular doctor to have that discussion with you about why some of these steps are being taken to ensure that at the end of the day, especially in places where they suspect that the COVID-19 hasn't sort of taken the right curve. The curve is coming down. That is what we want. We'll flatten the curve in most places around the country. The curve has clearly been flattened. Then when we talk about the flattening of the curve is how quickly the disease is rising. I want you to understand. Whereas we are showering praises on the front line, people like doctors all over the place, we also want to also tell you that you're also doing your part. I know it's very challenging for you to be staying at home and not be able to do the things you need to do. But I believe that all together we will be able at the appropriate time. This will pass. I want everybody to understand. This will pass, and that when it passes, then all the other things can be done. So that is why that is going on. So that is the part of this discussion. So let us move to COVID-19 and calorie balance. So what do we have? A lot of the nation is still under quarantine. So being under quarantine, right? The issue here is the fact that, first of all, your physical activity has gone down. We started talking about physical activity. You need to understand that most people in this country who are under quarantine, their physical activities have gone down because we don't move. I mean, there's a limit to how much you can move, especially if you don't have things to exercise at home. So that is why I will strongly encourage you that you need to increase your physicality. Let me share with you something that I found recently, and it's important. A trial was presented, and they looked at patients who get heart attack. Listen to what I'm saying. They look at patients who get a heart attack, and all the patients who get a heart attack, and I'm now seeing heart attack in 35-year-olds. So I used to tell people that probably before the opening of all the junk food that are in this country, that is when they did the studies and realized that a man at the age of 45, that is where heart attack starts. But now we see heart attacks in 35-year-olds, 30-year-olds. And it's all because it's driven essentially by, I believe, without a shadow of doubt, that there is a genetic predisposition. But this genetic predisposition is worsened by, right, inappropriate dietary patterns And the third one is what? The lack of physical activity. Let me explain the principle to you here for you to understand. I will do this and then we can go back to it. All these videos are there for you to give them if you're interested in. If you call our producers, we can send some of these things to you. But the word dieting comes from the word, it's a Greek word which is dieta. Right? And dieta does not mean, it is not about what you eat. Let me explain the principle to you. The word dieta means what? Change of lifestyle. People think dieting is fasting. Fasting and dieting are different. And that is what next week we'll be talking about fasting. What is the role of fasting in this situation as part of calorie management? But so today is the part 1 of calorie management, and next week will be part 2 of COVID-19 and calorie management. So because you are at home now, your physical activity has decreased, and because your physical activity has decreased, it increases certain risk. But let me go on back to the trial that I was talking about. So they looked at all the patients who got heart attack, a big database, and then they looked at the patients who exercise. And they looked at various level of exercise. That's what I'm coming to. Low exercise level is essentially defined by what? Sitting, right? Lying. Anything that you don't exert a lot of energy. And what is the definition of a sedentary life? A sedentary life is to be engaged in an activity. Generally, we define it at 1.5, about less than 4 MES, which is sitting, lying, right? No, anything that doesn't exert movement more than 8 hours a day. So if you sit in one place 8 hours a day, or you lie down 8 hours a day, essentially you are bordering on what? You are bordering on a sedentary lifestyle. And now, TV watching and all the watching of social media and other things has increased tremendously. Right? All the TV companies and all the movie companies are having a lot of people subscribing. I'm praying that it's good for the company, but I am worried a little bit. How many people are spending a lot of time behind the screen? Because, let me tell you this, watching TV, I'm repeating this, watching TV is associated with what? Bad health outcomes. So watch less TV, I'm telling you. Spend your time, watch TV. Don't listen to all the news that will make you depressed. I'm going off a little bit, but I'll come back. So the activities that I'm talking about, sitting down, right? Lying down. These are what we call, these are sedentary or low intensity activities. Let us come to moderate. Moderate intensity activity, which is strongly recommended by the American Heart Association as well as American College of Cardiology and almost all the societies around the world, including the UK and everybody, is considered as what? Being able to walk for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. People can still walk out of their home and then come back. 15 minutes away from your home and come back. And that should be able to work. That should be able to help you. Moderate intensity activity. You see, the good thing about God is that God never prescribed gym. God never prescribed all these things. But you know what? Because gym is good. There's no doubt. I'm not against that. Treadmill is good. I'm not against that. I'm going to tell you my own experience since COVID-19 started. How I needed to change my own lifestyle because the data was not good. So why is that important? Because everybody in our ability to walk up and down and other things that can help you. So whilst you are free, you walk and then you come back, walking up and walking down. And that is why most of the things we do, opening up blockages in people's leg, knee surgery and other things, is to improve your quality of life, to be able to help you to be ambulatory. So that is moderate intensity. Things like biking. Biking is also a form of moderate intensity activity if you bike slowly. If you walk for 1 hour, all that you need to do is to walk for 1 hour 3 times in a week, and you meet your 150 minutes of active physical activity. Now let us come to high intensity activity, which is something that I do. Number one that we know is biking at a high speed. Long distance is definitely a high intensity activity. Another thing that you do, running. There's no doubt about running. If you run, that is also a high intensity activity. People that swim, swimming demands a lot, and that is also a very, very good activity. And the last one, which I do, we call it the HIIT, right? A period of high intensity physical activity and then you stop. That is climbing things. So at my workplace, one of the things that I do as much as possible is to avoid elevators. And I'm talking about my work in the university. Over there, right, we have it's up to 6 floors. So I move from the basement to the to the 6th floor, go by the stairs. I do that 2 to 3 times a day, and that is considered as part of a high intensity. Now we know that people who do that activity, short but a high intensity activity, even if it's for 5 minutes, you come back and do that another 5 minutes. Those are very, very effective. And why do you need that? You only need 75 minutes of that activity. So the opportunity to climb stairs, right? If you can do that 2 or 3 times a day, if you're healthy enough to do that, that is very good. Now let us come to the era of COVID-19. Sometimes going out may be a challenge. And a lot of places, because of COVID-19, may not be open for you. You may not be able to go to certain floors. So you need to change your lifestyle, right? And that is why I'm presenting this trial to you. So you need to tell yourself, since the COVID-19 came, where are you? Are you a more sedentary person? Are you a more moderate intensity? Or you are a high intensity? So they looked at all the patients who had heart attack. And then they divided them into the various levels: low, high, and then intermediate or moderate intensity. This is what the trial found. Very interesting. Even if you get heart attack and you're somebody that was practicing moderate intensity activity, it reduces the probability of dying suddenly by 36%. 36. Now listen. If you are somebody that was practicing high intensity activity, even if you get heart attack, it reduces your risk of dying suddenly by 49%. This is a powerful data. So we know, because we know that people do exercise and other things, then they still get heart attack. So sometimes they come to us and we say, look, there are genetic components to it and other things. And we know that it is not failure proof that if you do all those things, you'll not get it. Because sometimes there are strong genetic factors that drive this. I know a guy who used to walk. I mean, he was as slim as anything. He was a vegetarian. His brother had a heart attack at the age of 58. He came to the hospital. Virtually every doctor that saw him said that they thought that he was having a heartburns. They gave him heartburns medications, and finally they called me. And they called me and I said, look, if it is heartburns, why is it that we're giving him heartburns medication and it's not working, right? And some of the doctors who saw him, who were strong vegetarians, right, felt that there is no way that this guy was going to have that. But it didn't make sense to me at that time. And I said, look, if he was still complaining of chest pain and he have given him all these medications and this guy is not, there is no reason why we didn't need to look at it. I went in and I looked at it. The guy had 100% blockage of the blood vessel, and we opened it up. When I was done, he asked me, why did you come? And I said, I came to come because it didn't make sense. It did not make sense. Everybody thought that you cannot get a heart attack. But what we know is that if the symptoms sound like that, then we need to go in and we'll open it up. He's been my patient for the last 3 or 4 years. These are the things that we know. So, but the good thing about this guy is what I want to present to you. That even if you get heart attack, based on the fact that you are somebody that is active, it cuts down your risk of dying suddenly. People get heart attacks. Every 40 seconds in the United States, somebody gets heart attack. I want to repeat that to you. So heart attacks is something that is going on. But the goal here is this. Having a heart attack does not necessarily mean that you should die. And physical activity, especially high intensity physical activity, can reduce, I'm repeating this, can reduce your risk of dying suddenly by almost 50%. Let me quote another trial in New England Journal for you to understand that these principles that we're talking about. So the data is very clear. And that is why, in the midst of reduction of our activities, inability to do that, you need to find new ways. If it is your home, put a watch on you, walk up and down your living room, up and down. You can do that by yourself. It doesn't matter whether you're walking on the moon, you're home in the field, it's still walking. It doesn't change it. It's the same walking. Keep on walking. And that is going to help you, right? And in my case, right, I'm not somebody, because of my work schedule, which is very, very busy. I did not always have time to be able to use the treadmill. But because our activities, we are still busy, and some of our activities are not there. I've added constant being on the treadmill. I was very tired this morning, but I had to go on the treadmill and exercise before coming here to talk to you. So it's a very important that you need. I have adapted. So in addition to, I don't run, I walk, because I believe that if you can walk, that is all that you need to be able to get yourself much more active. It's a critical and important point. If you can walk, right? And or find yourself. So other people tell me, okay, they cannot walk. I said, if you cannot walk, there are other things. Even hand exercise, right? It's a form of exercise. People don't know. They think that you should only walk, right? But hand exercise is also important. Lifting up weight that is appropriate for you is also form. Moving your hands is also an activity. So people that have got stationary bikes, they can use them, but that is very important as this economy opens up. Things like water sports, even people who do surgeries and other things, water sports is very powerful for them. So find a way to increase your activity. I'm encouraging my children to also increase their activity. And so I'm lucky enough to have a treadmill in my home, and just being on a treadmill for 30 minutes, that is more than you need. You don't need to put the treadmill at a very high speed. Just that speed, a moderate intensity speed. Just walk on it for 30 minutes, and that should be fine. Increase your heart. That will make you much more effective to carry on the other. It will make you much more effective in reducing your risk. It will make it easier for you to reduce your risk from cardiovascular disease. And that is a challenge that I think we want to sound these warning signs, so that once COVID-19 goes away, we will not be getting the risk of people staying at home and not being active. And because they are not active, things are going on that way. It is very, very important for us to be able to have that discussion. So let me come to another point. We talk about genetics, right? We know from the data from New England Journal that even if you've got a genetic predisposition, adherence to appropriate lifestyle. Number one, we talked about exercise, and I've reinforced the essence of exercise. Cuts down, I'm going to use the number again. Remember that high intensity activity reduces by 50%. I'm going to give you another one. The thing that was presented in New England Journal, or published in New England Journal, also shows that you can reduce your risk, even if you've got genetic predisposition, by 50%. I'm talking about 50%. If you undertake activities that will help you, that is, the bedrock of which I believe I always tell people three main things, which is appropriate dietary pattern, physical activities, right? And what? Avoidance of smoking. 3. I very much believe that weight management is part of if you're able to do appropriate dietary pattern as well as exercise, automatically the weight will be controlled. And I call these 3 the super pillars that is going to help you. So let us come to dietary patterns here, what is important. So number one, I hope that you're going to adapt physical activity. I told my residents that I work with yesterday, whether you're a doctor or not, it doesn't matter. You have to do this, right? Because these are principles. Being a doctor, you're a human being. It doesn't make you superhuman being. And these principles apply, And that is why it is important for us to make sure that all these things that we're talking about, you don't preach them without practicing them. And that goes from all my colleagues and everybody that you know. There was a doctor who was, I don't want to talk about, he was a huge guy, right? He wasn't obeying all those laws. And the patient had a heart attack, and he went to the patient, he told the patient, you need to eat well, you need to control your weight. His BMI is about 50 something. The patient came out and told the people, who is he talking to? Right? He should take care of himself first before talking to me. It's important because you can hide it. Right? So that is why these principles are important. Let us go to the second stage, which is important for all of us, which is calorie management. So how do you manage your calorie? The first, as I told you, I'm not going to finish this session today. I'm going to continue next week. So we're going to talk about dieting in the era of COVID-19. So first of all, as we've established, number one is to avoid high calorie food if you can. As much as possible, carbohydrate based food are high calorie food. So try to cut down your carbohydrate food. What do we mean by carbohydrates, right? The food that is made with white flour, right? The white bread, the all the cookies and the donuts and those. I'm not telling you not to eat them. I eat them, but cut them down. Before you eat anything, it is important to see how much calorie is in that particular thing. That is the first principle. The reason why we tell people to avoid high calorie food is the fact that if you end up having high calorie food and you are not exercising, especially in the era of COVID-19 where most people are at home, you only increase your risk because it doesn't go anywhere and it goes to lie down, is converted to fat, and it lies down in the blood vessels in the heart. So as much as you want to enjoy the cookies and all the carbohydrate based food, not to avoid them, sorry, I want to correct this, but it's important to limit them and rather move towards food that has low calorie. The reason why I eat salad as much as possible, I eat salad every evening. This is the reason. The reason is this. When you eat salad, right? Salad, a bowl full of salad, the calorie content of a bowl full of salad is very low compared to a bowl full of just name it. Whether I've compared this to this, a bowl full of spaghetti, right? I went to a restaurant recently, and I bought some spaghetti, very nice preparation, and I looked at the calorie. You know what the calorie was? It was 1,300. 1,300. And I looked at the salad. I bought it, and therefore I had to at least eat half of it. I don't want all my money to go waste, but so I had to enjoy it. I love that food. I must tell you this. But I realized that for me to be able to consume that would be a very high amount. So the total calorie that you consume, if you can lower that is the first step. And just look at it across board. It's important to do that. Now let us come to the second thing, which is probably the most important. It is glycemic index. Glycemic index. I want to talk about glycemic index before we go. So what is glycemic index? We did a whole lecture on glycemic index. And so if you are interested in glycemic index, you can call us, you can call our producers, we'll send it to you. Just go to radio, Zoe Light Radio website, and you can find the number. You can call us, or you can send us a message. The phone number is over there for you to be able to contact us. And then if you're interested in some of these videos on glycemic index, is going to help you. So let's define glycemic index here. Glycemic index is the rate at which the sugars and the calories that is in the food that you are eating is released into your blood. That is a very, 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 very important factor in the food that you eat. So, carbohydrates have higher glycemic index, and proteins have the lowest glycemic index. And that is why a lot of the weight loss medications, the weight loss food, the shakes, and all those things, the reason is that you never find the high carbohydrate ones. Most of the weight loss, weight management, which I don't know whether they work or they don't work. I can tell you that you don't need to spend that money if you listen to what I'm telling you on all those products. You can do them. I have been able to lose weight, maintain my weight for over 7-8 years. without any of these products. If you go by these principles that we're working with you. So the proteins have the low. So if people make you eat proteins, or they sell protein shakes to you, what is happening is that though the calorie content of the protein may be the same as the calorie content of the carbohydrate, if you eat the protein, only a small amount of the protein will be absorbed because the glycemic index of the protein is lower. And the other thing about the proteins is the fact that it's not all proteins, but let me give you an example. Legumes, right? Beans. Compare beans to eating something like cake. I'm putting this. Cake is full of sugar. I'm telling you, no kidding. And and not all cake, but some cakes, right? I mean, most of the cake. And compare that to eating a bowl full of beans. Though sometimes even the calorie content of the beans may be higher than the calorie content of the cake. But because the cake has what? It's made up of sugar. The calorie in the cake is going to be absorbed as quickly as possible. So you get them all. The way that God created us was the fact that when we eat food, natural occurring food, right? Even for carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate, your body is supposed to spend energy. That's what we're talking about calorie. Your body is supposed to spend energy to break down that food for you to get the food. So the reason why polished sugars and polished flour and polished white flour and all those things, the reason is that by processing this food, they have removed what our bodies needs to do to be able what? To be able to get it. So now if the food enters you, right? The food goes straight, the calorie goes straight into your body. And that is why diabetes is all over the world now. The reason why diabetes is going all over the world now is because, let me give an example, soda, right? One bottle of soda contains 8 to 10 teaspoons of sugar. If you consume, so sometimes people eat and after eating, they go and drink soda. Just imagine, why would you eat? If you finish eating, somebody brings you a bowl full of sugar to eat them. Will you eat them? But because it is soda, you want to eat it. And that is why the challenge, and that is why you need to take steps to move away from high glycemic food to low glycemic food. Most of the high glycemic index food, as I told you, number one is soda. And this time that we are sitting home, people are drinking these sodas and drinking these drinks like even my own home. It is moving very fast. When you drink more than 2 cups of these sodas or drinks, the amount is like consuming 20 to 30 teaspoons of sugar. And this goes into your body very fast. Let's look at broccoli. Let's look at beans, right? Legumes. Their glycemic index is low. So number one, you want to cut down the calorie that you consume if you can, which I will advise you. Number two is also to what I call it calorie switch. Switch your food from a high glycemic index food to low glycemic index food. That is food that it takes a long time for the body to absorb. Other forms of low glycemic index food is food that are what? That has got high fiber. High fiber food, it takes the body a long time to break it down. You see, a lot of people don't understand why some of the weight loss food is high fat. Let me explain the principle to you so that you understand. The highest glycemic index is the carbohydrates, right? They rise very fast. And the sugar goes straight into your body. And that is what causes diabetes and all those things. Because of the sodas, the cake, and all those things that people are consuming at a very, very high rate. Fat is in between. The body has to burn. The body burns a lot of energy to be able to get the energy that is in fat. And because of that, even diet that is based on high protein and high fat, interestingly, some of them have been found to be able to reduce weight. I do not recommend that, but I'm explaining to you why. just moving away from a high carbohydrate. You know, the challenge that we had in this country was that nobody wants to eat fatty food, which I strongly recommend that you don't. Especially, I'm going to come to a third thing, especially trans fat, which is what is used to prepare all the fried food in this country. Is something that we need to partially hydrogenated fat oils. We'll come to that discussion, but let's lay emphasis here. So when you consume a fatty food together with a protein food, which is some of the food products, some of the weight loss product goes with here. The reason why they're able to get you to lose weight is because those food, the glycemic index of those food is on the lower side. And because the glycemic index of those food is on the lower side, the amount, though you feel full, the amount that will be ultimately extracted from your body, from the food into your body is low. So they are using the principle of glycemic index to try to help you to lose weight. But I will tell you that is not the right way to go about it. The right way to go about it is to practice what we call calorie switch. Switch from a high glycemic index food, which is essentially the high carbohydrates, and move to things like vegetables. Vegetables have low glycemic index, right? Any sugars are bad. You know, fructose, let me give you an example. So, high fructose. So, there are certain things you want to stay away from, but I'll come to that. The carbohydrates, right? Not all carbohydrates are the same. For instance, I want to lay emphasis on this. High fructose corn syrup is dangerous. If you want to eat anything, when you see high fructose syrup on it, don't touch it. You are better off not touching it. And in the era of COVID-19, in addition to reducing the total amount of calorie that you consume, it is also important to avoid high fructose corn syrup in your carbohydrate-based drinks as well as food that you consume. High fructose syrup, corn syrup, is found in a lot of bakeries and other things. There are some that do not contain that, and go to the place that doesn't contain high fructose corn syrup and eat that one. That is going to be helpful. Now let us come to the fat. Not all fat is bad. We'll do a session on fat. We'll do a session on sugars. We'll do a session on proteins. I've talked about, we did it last year, but I think this year 2020 we need to go back. But when it comes to fat, during this period, you must avoid what we call partially hydrogenated fat. It's called trans fat. Trans fats, these are the things that make the French fry last for a long time. The food industry, they love it because it makes this food stay there for a long time. But listen to me. The same thing that makes it last for a long time is the same thing that will make the fat in your blood vessels last for a long time. Right? So this is not a discussion on that. I'm going to do a discussion on fat and that. But there's an excellent one that you can do. I'm talking about the concept of switching. So if you want to consume those ones, at least during this period, avoid partially hydrogenated fats and rather consume a high quantity of polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fat. The best of them all is extra virgin olive oil. Very, very good. Which is going to help you. Very important that you make the switch. So I'm talking about making switches, right? So that apart from reducing the calorie, you also reduce the risk of, even within the various food components that we eat, picking the appropriate one so that it improves your cardiovascular outcomes. So because of the concept that our activities have reduced, the third thing that you need to do in managing your calorie is the fact that I know there is a big doctor out here who was talking about the fact that the breakfast is overblown. I totally disagree with him. He may be popular, but everything he says is not always right. There is literature to back this over and over and over again. That breakfast is the best food that you need to eat. He may have differences because, fine, some of the data may not be conclusive. I understand that principle. But it makes sense. Because if you eat good breakfast, and you walk during the day, you are going to be in good energy balance and you are doing appropriate calorie management. If you eat lunch and before you go to sleep, you do your exercise in the evening, that is fantastic. You have entered an appropriate energy balance and a calorie management, because what did you do? You ended up burning some of the water, some of the energy that you consume. Listen to me. If you eat heavy dinner and you go to sleep, and in the morning you eat again, where did that dinner go to? You don't need a big doctor to tell you that that is not what that is not the case. It is common sense that the food that you ate in the night and went to bed without any form of activity, and if you get up the following morning and you eat again, that is my principle. When I eat evening dinner, sometimes because of my work, I come home at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. If I eat at night, because sometimes the whole day I've not eaten, I eat at night. When I get up in the morning, I don't eat. That's my principle. Because I want that food that I ate, which I did not use, to be spent. I drink my cup of coffee and I continue. That is important. So you have to practice appropriate dietary patterns. And that is why the principle of dieting is not about fasting. People say I'm dieting, so they stop eating. No. You can fast and you have problems. You're going to have many issues. That is not the way to go about it. Dieting means change of lifestyle, and it's an integral part of what? Of calorie management or energy balance. So what am I saying? One of the things you need to do in terms of managing your calorie is that eat good breakfast, right? Eat relatively good lunch. And those of you who exercise in the evening, that is even fantastic. You eat your lunch, you exercise in the evening before you go and sleep. And limit your what? Limit your dinner. I can tell you confidently that a lot of patients have come to me who have problems with their weight. And I can say this, 90% of most of the patients, immediately they sit down. I said, let us start the discussion. Do you eat? What is your best food? Was it supper, dinner, or breakfast? Overwhelmingly, if this patient is not taking steroids or medications that can give them put on weight, overwhelmingly, these patients, they eat heavy dinner and they don't eat breakfast. Right? I was like that, so I know very well. My favorite is dinner. That's what I used to do. But now, to be able to do calorie switch, I've done calorie switch by making my dinner what? Salad. And because my dinner is now salad has a very, very low calorie calorie content. And salad also has one of the best glycemic index. When these two things come together, appropriate switching to low calorie and also a very, very, very low glycemic index, you can control your blood sugars very nicely. And all the good things that are in the vegetables and in the fruits are going to help you to be able to get the benefits. So, in summary, we'll give you an update about what is happening in terms of cardiovascular health and COVID-19 and where we are going to. We talked about the power of exercise. Different times demand different approaches, and that is why I've modified my exercise and physical activity pattern, and I strongly encourage you to adapt that. If you sit for more than 8 hours in a day, please, we know, based on the data that was published about 1 million people, that 1 hour of exercise will reverse 8 hours of sedentary activity. It's not me who said it. A colleague of mine was talking to me and said, that may be your opinion. I said, look, I don't go about sharing my opinions. I want to share what the data shows. My opinion is important, but that is not the most important thing. What does the literature show? And that's what I'm telling you. 1 hour of exercise can reverse 8 hours of what? Of sedentary activity. And that is what you need to do. So we talked about exercise. Then we talked about cutting down the amount of calorie, especially in this era. of quarantine, and then also doing calorie switch. Next week, I'm going to be talking about very, very interesting concepts here. I'm going to be talking about coffee, right? Coffee is we all drink coffee. Most people drink coffee. It's not everybody, but most people drink coffee. And what is the role of it in terms of calorie management? And we're going to go into other parts of calorie management. So this is phase 1 of COVID-19 and calorie management, and the next week we'll continue with phase 2. Once again, this is Isaac Opoku-Asare. I am an interventional cardiologist and endovascular doctor, and this is Healthy Heart. Thanks to you all for joining me, and I hope to see you here again another Saturday and another Tuesday. And I want to thank my producing team who have been doing a fantastic job to ensure that 2020 will continue to come to you week in and week out. God bless you. God bless America. Keep yourself safe. Thanks.